whenever the Punic War is discussed, often there are very critical aspects of that war that are left out. It is the case for every war anyways, or it is the case with any subject of history. Often there is need for simplification, and that simplification often ends up leaving out parts that might not seem important to the person trying to simplify the whole story, but for other people it might be that that was a very important detail that didn't need to be left out. Now, when we discuss the Punic War, of course, the understanding is that the Punic War was between the Romans and the Carthaginians. That's what it was. But those who were involved in this war were beyond just the Romans and the Carthaginians. Other nations did get involved. And we can even say that the Punic War was a mini world war, and there were nations on one side against nations on the other sides. There are nations that joined the Romans, and there are nations that joined the Carthaginians. That war was fought like that. Now, one of the people or peoples or nation that Livy mentions a lot and seems like it played a major role on how the war turned out is the Numidians. Now, the Numidians, when you try to do research, you come to the conclusion that the Numidians were the people we know today as the Berbers, who live in the Northern Africa part and part of the Sahel region. And these people seems like they had a very advanced civilization in the northern part of Africa, and they had their own kings, they had their own governments, they had their own territory, of course, and they were neighbors to the Carthaginians. Now, when Hannibal decides to go to Europe and fight, and he attacks the allies of the Romans in what we know today as Spain and Portugal, he goes to Europe with an army that is composed of the Carthaginians, but also a huge army from the Numidians and also other tribes. It's important to mention that. But when you read Livy's text, you realize that the Numidians played a very important role in that war, particularly as cavalry or soldiers on horses or on animals. They were very good at that. And in fact, as you read along, you come to realize that that did influence how the war turned out. Now, even the Romans did fear a lot the Numidians. In fact, there is one senator who is quoted by Livy saying that if they don't work hard and fight the Carthaginians and their allies, then they run the risk of becoming dependency of the Numidians and the Moors. No, the Moors were other tribes of North Africa. And that seems to have made the Romans very worried that, yes, the Carthaginians are coming, but they are coming with these Numidians and the Moors and these other tribes. And this senator was kind of like trying to scare the Romans that if you don't come out and fight, then you're going to basically be slaves of the Numidians and the Moors. Now, every battle that Livy describes that is going on between the Romans and the Carthaginians, the Numidians are almost always mentioned as playing a critical role in those battles. Now, at some point, the Numidians did change their alliance. Livy tells us that there was this Publius Scipios and Gnaeus Scipio. These were Roman generals and they were brothers. And these two gentlemen kind of like determined how the war turned out. Like they reshaped it and did a lot of work to make sure that the Romans win. Now, one of the things that Publius and Gnaeus did was to reach out to the Numidians. And Livy tells us that they did send a message to a king of the Numidians called Syphax. And Syphax did invite them to have a conversation, and they did have a conversation. And at some point, Syphax decides to join the Romans and abandon the Carthaginians. But still, the Carthaginians did manage to control a significant section of the Numidians. But by the Scipios being able to talk to Syphax and having him come to their side, they kind of like were able to tilt how the war was going. And Livy tells us that the Numidians, as I've mentioned, they were very good with horse riding and fighting on horses, or cavalry as they are called. And they brought that skill on the side of the Romans. And of course, we know what happened at the end. The Romans won the war. But and we can say that the Numidians played a major role, number one, of emboldening, number one, of giving Hannibal the capacity to attack Rome, and also they gave the Romans the ability to defend themselves and go on offensive and win over and win the war against the Carthaginians. See you in the next video. If you like the videos that I upload, take a moment to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the videos that I publish. And I also appreciate you subscribing. I also appreciate you liking and commenting. See you in the next video.